when you have a flower and you cut it from its root, it'll look like it's alive for a while, but it's not. And eventually those petals are going to fall off because it's going to die. And I think that is a great analogy for our culture and where we are. We've been cut from the root, and each generation that comes is more and more removed from where we should be as far as men and women and families and morals and a way of life. Welcome to Far From Eden. I missed yesterday because I was babysitting, and I'll be babysitting again today. I am exhausted. I didn't really do anything except just pay attention and, I don't know. But for some reason it's exhausting. I don't just sit on my phone and ignore the child. I feel like children get that enough. So, anyway, it was funny because I forget that, I might put a post up of a picture of my dog Lola helping me babysit, and people are like, "Oh, you have a kid?" I'm like, "Oh, whoops, they didn't see the previous post or see the video where I talked about I was going to be babysitting." Like, I forget. I'm like, no, I've never been pregnant. I've never been married. I was diagnosed with MS when I was 22, and I kind of was like, any inkling of children that I wanted, I let it go because I thought, well, that's not fair. And I mean, even from the time I was 22, it was very aggressive. There's no way I could even hold my baby and carry my baby, There's even been a lot of times where to stand up and pick up a baby, I just not capable. So it's sad, but it's life, and it's been something that I've had to grieve, especially more lately as I've gotten older. It's more of a realization, I think, when you get older as a woman and you go, oh, yeah, there's not going to be children. And so I enjoy the time when I do, when I've tutored or when I gave riding lessons or when I still, coach kids, and I, get to babysit for a friend. I like that. I really wanted to read her a story from our book, but it's not my child. That would be wrong because I'd be crossing all kinds of boundaries that, obviously would be teaching things that most people in this society are like, oh my gosh, that's hate speech, or it's really not. But that's how far off we are. And so I know on Thursday we did a story. We did The Fisherman and His Wife, which was my first time ever reading that. That's a fantastic story. Everybody was like, oh, that's like the husband story. You should do the husband story. And I'm going to. I think I kind of know the gist of the husband story, but I want to read it with you guys and go over it. But since I didn't get to read this to the little girl, and I'm going to try to get it out of my system and finally read Cinderella, because Cinderella is the main princess, especially for my generation, Gen X. That's the castle at Disneyland. That's Cinderella's castle. It wasn't the first of the princess movies to come out. Snow White was. Snow White's actually my favorite, but Cinderella was, for some reason, that's the archetype. And I think to understand where we are and who women are and who we've become, these stories, there's so much truth in them. It's brilliant. So I want to honor a request from one of you. It said, please show the book more, because he's got one from the 1800s. And I was like, oh my gosh. Anyways, so this is what it looks like. I understand it's backwards. It looks like, did you see that? So that's what the cover looks like. There's no publication date. So I researched it and I thought it was 1930s. I mean, for all I know, it could be different. It was published by David McKay Company out of Philadelphia. And it says Grimm's Fairy Tales by the Brothers Grimm, translated by Mrs. Lucas, Lucy Crane and M. Edwards. Newbery Classics, dedicated to the memory of John Newbery. Printer for children, 1713 to 1767. So that's what it says on this first page. Just says printed in the United States of America. It does not have a publication date, which is wild to me. It has so many. I really want to read every single story. And I'm sure that some of the titles I will be like, oh, I know this story. But the thing is that they have changed these stories. When I say they, it's like the elites, the overlords, whoever is running this propaganda machine, busting up the nuclear family to take over. And you can't talk about it. And I don't think you can talk about this stuff without recognizing, well, why is it this way? Who benefits? We're not benefiting from this as much as women would like to believe that we are. We're not happier. We're not. That's a lie that they teach in gender studies. So we don't teach that here. So we're going to read Cinderella. I've never read the original story. My parents told me, oh, this is, they told me something about the sisters like cutting their feet to fit into the slipper. They told me this when I was little, and I was like, oh my God. But it was never read to me. I wish it had been. I'm sure, there were in Little Red Cap, the Little Red Riding Hood story, so many lessons. And the fisherman and his wife, so much truth. Good God. Could you imagine if these things were read to children nowadays? There's so many lessons to learn. So Cinderella is on page 163. If anybody wants to compare their Grimm's fairy tale books. And somebody also suggested, one of you also suggested, we should get this reprinted because, the book is falling apart. I got it from a friend's house a friend's grandfather, he was like getting rid of all of his treasures. And this was there. I was like, may I have this? Yes. This is incredible. But yeah, we should get this reprinted. I don't know what all is involved with that, but I want to find out, and maybe we can raise funds to do that, because this is just, it's worth its weight in gold. Truth is invaluable. So yeah, so that's where the unicorn blanket usually is for you guys who are here regularly, but that's where, that's the sleepover futon. So that's just going to stay up for tonight. I'm sure it's people who are here for the first time are like, what is this channel? Oh, that's all right. We're a lot of things. All right. Once upon a time, the wife of a certain rich man fell very ill, and as she felt her end drawing nigh, she called her only daughter to her bedside and said, "My dear child, be pious and good, and then the good God will always protect you, and I will look down upon you from heaven and think of you." Wow, we're already using words like pious. We've seen in The Fisherman and His Wife and Little Red Cap, there's these, it's obvious that, we live in Christendom. It's just understood how different it is today. Now today, it's like it's secular first. Soon afterwards, she closed her eyes and died. Every day the maiden went to her mother's grave and wept over it, and she continued to be good and pious. But when winter came, the snow made a white covering over the grave, and in the springtime, when the sun had withdrawn this covering, the father took to himself another wife. It's kind of odd, too, that she was the only child, because that was kind of a more rare thing. It's not like there was birth control, so it must have been just a fertility issue or something. So the dad's going to remarry, and that is a very practical decision. Back in the day, it's, he had a daughter, he needs a wife. It was just practical. That was It's not like there were supermarkets and, dishwashers and all these, he needed somebody to take care of things at home and take care of his daughter. It's not daycare, so it does make sense. Marriage was not so much about romance and all this, Valentine's Day commercial baloney stuff that doesn't carry you through, which is why there's so much divorce. Oh, I fell out of love. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's about a decision and commitment. So she's very pious. So the husband has remarried. The wife brought home with her 2 daughters who were beautiful and fair in the face, but treacherous and wicked at heart. Okay, so we're already taking this is a big difference from the modern day Cinderella, where the stepsisters are ugly, like ugly to look at. They were not beautiful. This is a big difference. So they're ugly in their personality. Then an unfortunate era began in the poor stepchild's life. Shall the stupid goose sit in the parlor with us? Said the 2 daughters. They who would eat bread must earn it. Out with the kitchen maid. So they took off her fine clothes and put upon her an old gray cloak and gave her wooden shoes for her feet. See how the once proud princess is decked out now, said they, and they led her mockingly into the kitchen. Then she was obliged to work hard from morning till night and to go out early to fetch water, to make the fire, to cook and scour. The sisters treated her, besides, with every possible insult, derided her, and shook the peas and the beans into the ashes so that she had to pick them out again. At night, when she was tired, she had no bed to lie on, but was forced to sit in the ashes on the hearth, and because she looked dirty through this, they named her Cinderella, like after the cinders. All right, well, where's Dad? Why is she being treated like this? Where's her father? He's not running this household, is he? Why would he let his daughter be treated like this by his stepdaughters? That's awful. There's no shame in hard work, and there's definitely no problem with working in the kitchen, but it's the humiliation and the fact that they're obviously like upper society, so they would usually have like a maid. Women are so competitive. Let me just take a second. I have a theory, and tell me what you think about this. Sometimes I think that women don't really have friends, they have allies, until those allies don't benefit them anymore. I have found this to be true over the years. It's really sad. But we are herd creatures. We're creatures. We have a herd mentality, hive mentality, a lot of you guys call it. But the thing is that hives are very harmonious and cooperative, right? The bees. We're not like that. We will tear each other down. The movie Mean Girls is actually brilliant. And the way girls are, the way they form groups and they tear each other down and they compete, even the way that mothers compete with their daughters. It's a thing, and it's I think, here's something. You get my tired brain today, who knows what I might say. I think if the father had taken a stronger role in this house and said, that's not the way we treat people, this is how we act, we're all going to be pious, they wouldn't act like that. But he clearly doesn't have control over this house. One day it happened that the father wanted to go to the fair, so he asked his 2 daughters what he should bring them. Some beautiful dresses, said one. Pearls and precious stones, replied the other. But you, Cinderella, said he, what will you have? Well, it said he asked his 2 daughters. Well, he has 2 stepdaughters, and he has his daughter, Cinderella. See what happens when the man remarries? The kids from but she died. It's not like even it was a divorce. What's up with this? But you, Cinderella, said he, what will you have? The first bough, father, that knocks against your hat on your way homeward. Break it off for me, she replied. That's interesting. So he bought the fine dresses and the pearls and precious stones for his 2 stepdaughters. And on his return, he rode through a green thicket. A hazel bough touched his hat, which he broke off and took with him. As soon as he got home, he gave his stepdaughters what they had wished for, and to Cinderella he gave the hazel branch. She thanked him very much, and going to her mother's grave, she planted the branch on it, and wept so long that her tears fell and watered it, so that it grew and became a beautiful tree. Thrice a day Cinderella went beneath it to weep and pray, and each time a little white bird flew on the tree, and if she wished aloud, then the little white bird threw down to her whatever she wished for. Yeah, this is not the Disney Cinderella. Everybody thinks Disney is going woke now. No, Disney was woke when they made the first Cinderella movie and changed the stepsisters to being ugly in the face. They should have shown that they're pretty in the face and talked about character. Because as a child, as a little girl, you associate, oh, they're ugly in the face and they're ugly in personality. It would have been good to show, well, you can be pretty on the outside, but when your character is off, that's a problem. The other thing they changed that is really important is the mother saying to Cinderella, be good, and talking to Cinderella about God. They're not going to put that, And there's nothing about the dad. I mean, I don't even think you see the dad in the movie. It's like, he died, he got remarried. I don't know, maybe I'm forgetting part of the movie. But I think it's good to tell you guys what I remember, because it affected me. And you can talk to, women my age and younger women, things that they've seen. It wouldn't be Cinderella so much, but things that we saw, movies, music, it influenced us. It shaped the way that we think. And more than people realize, way more than women realize. We are more impressionable. There's a reason the serpent waited for Eve to be alone and tempted her with the fruit. There's a reason he chose her. And when she was alone. Okay. I get going on my little sidetrack and then I forget where I am. Okay, so she planted it, right? And the bird came and gave her whatever she wished for. After a time, it fell out that the king appointed a festival, which was to last 3 years, and to which all the beautiful maidens in the country were invited, from whom his son was to choose a bride. Did I say 3 years? To last 3 days. I'm so tired, and all I did was babysit. Didn't even stay up late. Appointed a festival, which was to last 3 days, and to which all the beautiful ladies in the country were invited. See, in the movie, it's just one dance. This is a 3-day festival. That's a little bit more reasonable to get to know somebody. When the 2 stepdaughters heard that they might also appear, they were very glad, and calling Cinderella, they said, "Comb our hair, brush our shoes, and fasten our buckles, for we are going to the festival at the king's palace." Cinderella obeyed, crying, because she wished to go with them to dance, so she asked her stepmother whether she would allow her. "You, Cinderella," said she, "you are covered with dust and dirt. Will you go to the festival? You have no clothes or shoes, and how can you dance?" But as she urged her request, the mother said at last, "I have now shaken into the ashes a tub full of beans. If you have picked them up again in 2 hours, you shall go." Well, that's manipulative. She's like, I don't want to seem bad, so I'm not telling you can't go, I'm just saying, you got to do this chore for me. And if you can get it done, which she doesn't think she can, then you can go. See, then you can't say I'm bad. Then it's your fault. Manipulative. Then the maiden left the room and went out at the back door into the garden and called out, "You tame pigeons and doves and all you birds of heaven, come and help me to gather the good beans into the tub, and the bad ones you may eat." Presently, in at the kitchen window came 2 white pigeons, and after them the doves, and soon all the birds under heaven flew chirping in down upon the ashes. They then began pick, 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 and gathered all the good seeds into the tub, and scarcely an hour had passed when all was completed, and the birds flew away again. Then the maiden took the tub to the stepmother, rejoicing at the thought that she might now go to the festival. But the stepmother said, "No, Cinderella, you have no clothes and cannot dance. You will only be laughed at." As she began to cry, the stepmother said, "If you can pick up quite clean 2 tubs of beans, which I throw amongst the ashes in 1 hour, you shall accompany them." Same thing again. And she thought to herself, she will never manage it. As soon as the 2 tubs had been shot into the ashes, Cinderella went out at the back door into the garden and called out, as before, "You tame pigeons and doves, and all you birds under heaven, come and help me to gather the good ones into the tubs, and the bad ones you may eat." Presently, in at the kitchen window came 2 white pigeons, and soon after them the doves, and soon all the birds under heaven flew chirping in down upon the ashes. They then began pick, 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 and gathered all the seeds into the tub, and scarcely had half an hour passed before all was picked up, and off they flew again. The maiden now took the tubs to the stepmother, rejoicing as at the thought that she could go to the festival. But the mother said, "It does not help you a bit. You cannot go with us, for you have no clothes and cannot dance. We should be ashamed of you." She's just torturing her. And I have another video where I talk about women are like cats. Sometimes we are so cruel, and we will just, manipulate and be like that for the fun of it. I mean, they would never say it's for the fun of it, but I realize it's not a true story, but as I've said before, especially after watching a lot of Dr. Peterson and listening to him talk, there's really no such thing as a fictional story, because especially here, it's really obvious. This is rooted in truth, and it comes from people's experience in observing behavior, and it's a telling of human nature. So is it really fiction? Not really. Thereupon she turned her back upon the maiden and hastened away with her 2 proud daughters. Pride is sin. As there was no one at home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave under the hazel tree and said, "Rustle and shake yourself, dear tree, and silver and gold throw down to me." Then the bird threw down a dress of gold and silver and silken slippers ornamented with silver. These Cinderella put on in great haste, and then she went out to the ball. Oh, there's no fairy godmother. The bird is the fairy godmother, because that's kind of supposed to be sort of like the spirit of her mother. Her sisters and stepmother did not know her at all, and took her for some foreign princess, as she looked so beautiful in her golden dress. For of Cinderella they thought not, but that she was sitting at home picking the beans out of the ashes. It's a good alibi. Presently, the prince came up to her, and taking her by the hand, led her to the dance. He would not dance with anyone else, and even would not let go of her hand, so that when anyone else asked her to dance, he said, "She is my partner." Well, they danced till evening, when she wished to go home, but the prince said, "I will go with you and see you safe." For he wanted to see to whom the maiden belonged. because we used to belong to a certain family, and that mattered. There was no idea of single woman. That is a very modern term, 20th century. The idea of women living alone and being single. No, we are of a family. Anyway, she flew away from him, however, and sprang into the pigeon house. So the prince waited till the father came, whom he told that the strange maiden had run into the pigeon house. Then the stepmother thought, could it be Cinderella? And they brought an axe wherewith the prince might cut open the door, but no one was found within. And when they came into the house, there lay Cinderella. So this is when the evil stepmother and daughters get back. And stepmother's like, is this Cinderella? That was not in a Disney movie either. They had no idea. Cinderella was in her dirty clothes, back among the ashes, and an oil lamp was burning in the chimney, for she had jumped quickly out on the other side of the pigeon house, and had run to the hazel tree, where she had taken off her fine clothes and laid them on the grave, and the bird had taken them again, and afterwards she had put on her little gray cloak and seated herself among the ashes in the kitchen. So there's no fairy godmother and bippity boppity boo and the mice turning into horses and all that, and you have to be back, before the clock strikes midnight. There's none of that. None of that. Cinderella wanted to go home because she didn't want to basically get in trouble with, her evil stepmother. So, wow, this is a very different story. They changed it a lot. Why did they change these things? Well, because they have a message to convey. And they want to change history. We're full on George Orwell 1984. They're changing what our history was. And when they change the stories, old stories, tales, and fables, they're trying to change reality. And it works. There's so many young people that just have no idea of where we come from and they have no idea. That's why they're so easy to convince of all this crazy stuff that's going on. Stuff I can't talk about on YouTube. The next day, when the festival was renewed, because it's 3 days, not just one ball, and her stepmother and her sisters had set out again, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and sang as before, "Rustle and shake yourself, dear tree, and silver and gold throw down to me." Then the bird threw down a much more splendid dress than the former, and when the maiden appeared at the ball, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The prince, however, who had waited till she came, took her hand and would dance with no one else. And if the others came and asked, he replied as before, "She is my partner." They definitely would want to take that out, because he's like, obviously she's beautiful, and this is a festival. There's a lot of people there, and they see this beautiful. He's probably not the only one looking for a wife. Can you imagine? It's for the prince to find a wife, so the best ladies, most well-bred ladies, are coming there. And so if you're a young, they probably didn't use the term bachelor, but if you were a young bachelor, you're probably going to show up thinking, well, this is a great place to find a bride. So they see Cinderella and they're like, hey, she's pretty, And guys can tell. Why would it be a 3-day festival and he's going to find his bride? Because guys can tell. I have learned this actually fairly recently. There are things about us women that the men can tell straight away about who we are, our character. If we smile a lot, the tone of our voice, even our fitness level says a lot about, how disciplined we are, how lazy we are. So much they can tell by visualize. It doesn't take long for them to kind of figure us out in a lot of ways. Problem is the culture and the way we're single and the things that, young women get into nowadays, they don't know the trauma and they don't understand how important all of that is. So they end up with women who ruin their lives. And see all my other videos for that. Oh, so obviously the prince sees in her, she's different. She's kind, you know. She's kind, she's sweet, she's pious. You can tell these things by how a woman talks, by how she behaves. He can tell that. So, the part about like he won't let her dance with anybody else. You couldn't put that nowadays. Oh my gosh, she's being controlling. What if she wants to dance with someone else? You know what? I'll let you in on a little secret. This is something else that women would be like, that's not true. It's true. We like it when there's a man and he just wants us for his own. He doesn't want anybody else even looking. That feels really good. Feels really good. And Cinderella was having that from this prince. It's a good thing. They're asking her to dance. She's not the one that gets to say yes or no. And it isn't just because he's a prince. It's because he's the man. So he's like, nope, she's my partner. And if a feminist was reading this, like, how can he say that? She needs to be one. Little teeny things like this, they change it. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's a huge deal. It's huge. These people, it's totally on purpose. They don't change stories just to make it more entertaining. No, it's propaganda. It's always been propaganda. There's no such thing as entertainment. No such thing. Even this was to teach good lessons. It wasn't just, oh, these are stories just to have fun. No. There's no such thing. It's all for an agenda. It's just what is the agenda and who is pushing it and what is their goal. But we don't look at it like that because maybe not 1984, but Huxley's book where it's all bread and circus, right? It doesn't look like totalitarianism. Brave New World. So the prince is like, nope, she's my partner. As soon as evening came, she wished to depart, and the prince followed her, wanting to see into whose house she went. But she sprang away from him and ran into the garden behind the house. Therein stood a fine large tree on which hung the most beautiful pears, and the boughs rushed as though a squirrel was among them. But the prince could not see where the noise proceeded. He waited, however, till the father came and told him, the strange maiden has escaped from me, and I think she has climbed up into this tree. She's fast. She is quick. The father thought to himself, can it be Cinderella? Oh, it's her father. Oh, well, he popped up again. I'm glad he remembered he has a daughter. And taking an axe, he chopped down the tree, and there was no one in it. When they went into the kitchen, there lay Cinderella among the ashes as before. For she had sprung down the other side of the tree, and having taken her beautiful clothes again to the bird upon the hazel tree, she had put on once more her old gray cloak. The third day, when her stepmother and her sisters had set out, Cinderella went again to her mother's grave and said, rustle and shake yourself, dear tree, and silver and gold throw down to me. Then the bird threw down to her a dress which was more splendid and glittering than she had ever had before, and the slippers were of pure gold. There's no glass slippers. Why would they do? I don't know why they changed certain things. When she arrived at the ball, they knew not what to say for wonderment, and the prince danced with her alone, as at first, and replied to every one who asked her hand, she is my partner. As soon as evening came, she wished to go, and as the prince followed her, she ran away so quickly that he could not overtake her. But he had contrived a stratagem and spread the whole way with pitch, so that it happened, as the maiden ran, that her left slipper came off. The prince took it up and saw it was small and graceful and of pure gold. So the following morning he went with it to the father and said, I guess it's his father. How would his father have been like, is that Cinderella? That was weird. My bride shall be no other than she whose foot this golden slipper fits. The two sisters were glad of this, for they had beautiful feet, and the elder went with it to her chamber to try it on, while her mother stood by. Okay, so again, in the Disney movie, they didn't have pretty feet. Nothing was pretty about them, aesthetically. Funny. That's important. Girls needed to learn the difference between outward beauty and inward beauty. That is super important. And the other thing I want to say real quick about the 3-day festival to find a bride. Did you notice that the women, that was a bunch of pick-me girls. Oh boy, they like to call me that. But we are the ones that get chosen. Men are the gatekeepers of relationship. And especially back before Industrial Revolution and grocery stores and cars and all the things, 911 and the things that make it possible for women to live alone safely. Men, I don't know, I gotta get back in the book because I'm just gonna go off topic. That's gonna be another video. Sorry about that, you guys. That's my tired brain. MS has a good time with tired brain. She could not, however, this is the sister trying on the shoe with the stepmother right by. She could not, however, get her great toe into it. And the shoe was, you mean great toe like big toe, because they use that interchangeably. And the shoe was much too small. But the mother, reaching a knife, said, cut off your toe, for if you are queen, you need not go any longer on foot. Talk about the mother wanting to raise her status. She doesn't care. Here, you can lose a toe. She wants to be, queen mother. Oh, women love their children. Might want to reconsider that sometimes when you think about it. The maiden cut it off and squeezed her foot into the shoe, and concealing the pain she felt, went down to the prince. Then he placed her as his bride upon his horse and rode off. And as they passed by the grave, there sat 2 little doves upon the hazel tree, singing, backwards peep, there's blood upon the shoe. The shoe's too small, and she behind is not the bride for you. Okay. Then the prince looked behind and saw the blood flowing. So he turned his horse back and took the false bride home again, saying she was not the right one. Then the other sister must needs fit on the shoe. So she went to the chamber and got her toes nicely into the shoe, but the heel was too large. The mother said, reaching a knife, cut a piece of your heel, for when you become queen, you need not go any longer on foot. She cut a piece off her heel, squeezed her foot into the shoe, and concealing the pain she felt, went down to the prince. Then he put her upon his horse as his bride and rode off. And as they passed the hazel tree, there sat 2 little doves who sang, backwards peep, there's blood upon the shoe. The shoe's too small, and she behind is not the bride for you. It's funny, he couldn't recognize her. He's just gonna go by the shoe. I don't know. I guess for the story you need that. But think about it, these sisters weren't hurting, It's the status they wanted, even more riches, even more. And they don't mind cutting a piece of their foot off to do it. And the mother doesn't mind that at all. It's going to improve the mother's life. Where's Dad again? Then he looked behind and saw the blood trickling from her shoe, and that the stocking was dyed quite red. So he turned his horse back and took the false bride home, again saying, neither is this won the right maiden. Have you no other daughter? Nope, replied the father. Except little Cinderella, daughter of my deceased wife, who cannot possibly be the bride. The prince asked that she might be fetched, but the stepmother said, "Oh no, she is much too dirty. I dare not let her be seen." But the prince would have his way, so Cinderella was called, and she, first washing her hands and face, good call, went in and curtsied to the prince, who gave her the golden shoe. Cinderella sat down on a stool. I hope they cleaned out the blood. Sat down on a stool, and taking off her heavy wooden shoes, put on the slipper, which fitted her to a shade. And as she stood up, the prince looked in her face, and recognizing the beautiful maiden with whom he had danced, exclaimed, "This is my true bride." The stepmother and the two sisters were amazed and white with rage. But the prince took Cinderella upon his horse and rode away, and as they came up to the hazel tree, the two little white doves sang, backwards peep, there's no blood on the shoe. It fits so nice, and she behind is the true bride for you." And as they finished, they flew down and lighted upon Cinderella's shoulders, and there they remained. And the wedding was celebrated with great festivities, and the two sisters were smitten with blindness as a punishment for their wickedness. Well, consequences. I don't remember consequences for those nasty sisters in Cinderella. I just remember they were mad because Cinderella was the one, but not them. But like, they didn't go blind for being wicked, because being wicked is bad. Oh my gosh, that's the end. I love the Grimm brothers. I mean, I understand this was already a story, and the Grimm brothers traveled through Europe and, collected the stories. But like, this is not entertainment. I'm sure it was used for entertainment and stories were told, but this is just truth. It just ends with, yep, they went blind because they were wicked. There's no getting out of it. There's no excuses. That's not, well, our mom made us, or, oh, I have trauma. There's no excuses. You did something. It was wrong. Here's your consequence. It's like Little Red Cap. Not to spoil it if you haven't seen that video, but like, Little Red Cap got eaten. Grandma got eaten. No more. The wolf didn't get cut open, and then they're fine. Like the modern day version of Little Red Riding Hood. No, they were dead. So, like, yeah. Smitten with blindness as a punishment for their wickedness. Yeah. Consequences are real. And this would be so good to read. Actually might read this to her. Actually might. I don't have to say anything. Just read it. Like, oh, have you ever heard the original story? I don't have to say anything about it. It's an idea. I might do it. If I do it, I'll tell you guys. And I'll tell you guys how it went. That's interesting. So, yeah, they changed it a lot. So, I haven't heard that they're going to do another one, but maybe they will change it again. But it was woke, in the early, whenever they did it in the mid 20th century, made the movie. It wasn't. It's not just now that everything's changing. These are the lessons that people needed to learn. They needed to understand that it's good to be good, and that there's such a thing as right and wrong. It sounds crazy to have to say that, but when it's my truth and your truth, everybody just gets to decide. And it's just not going so well. So I'm glad I finally read the original story. Well, there's probably one even older. But yeah, amazing. And we could really benefit from infusing society with these truths again. But anyway, thank you guys. I will see you guys on the next one. I love you. Be well. Take care of yourselves. Do something that feeds your soul. Enjoy, what day is it? Enjoy Saturday. And I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.